Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and today we've got the second Pourformance here on the channel. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, yes, it's like performance, but P-O-U-R, like a pour of whiskey. And that's because not only am I going to review this whiskey, but I'm also going to perform something for all of you. The channel's name is Drums and Drams, and in my day-to-day life, I am a percussionist. I play in an orchestra. I play as a soloist. And this is a great way for me to bring both of those things together. And look, I know a lot of you out there don't care about the music stuff. First off, I would encourage you to just give it a chance, because a lot of people on Pourformance #1, which was Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye, along with a kind of jazzy vibraphone solo, a lot of people were like, hey man, I thought this was going to suck. It actually ended up being pretty cool, and I didn't expect to like it. So I would encourage you to stick around and at least see if it's up your alley. But if it's not, that's totally cool. Just watch the whiskey portion and move on to your next video once we get to this piece today. The idea behind this series is not only to bring whiskey and music together, but to do it in a meaningful way. And in this case, I asked for your feedback. It was either on YouTube or on Patreon about what is a finished whiskey that perfectly integrates the finishing cask with the base whiskey. It creates a perfect marriage of those profiles. And to my surprise, the overwhelming answer was an Amburana Finished Bourbon, this Barrell Amburana finish. And if you know anything about Amburana Finished Bourbon, you know that this is not a subtle finish. This is like you leave it in the cask, or you put the staves in, or the spirals, however you're going to finish it. You do that for like a couple of days and you're good to go. You do not need to leave this finishing for weeks and months like you do with other types of, ex-wine casks or anything like that. Amburana is not subtle. So to hear that this was the suggestion, and in an overwhelming kind of support coming from people about this bottle, I was surprised. Lido, who is a Patreon member, generously donated this bottle to the channel. So thank you, Lido, for making this video possible. If this sucks, I'm blaming all of you, but I'm still saying thank you to Lido for hooking me up with this bottle. So let's get into it now. We're going to review this whiskey. At the end of the review, I will tell you why this relates to the piece that I'm going to play for all of you. And just kind of as a little preface to that, it's going to be a piece for percussion and electronics, and I'm playing a ton of percussion instruments in a setup that completely surrounds me. It's about 13 minutes long, so it's a little on the long side. Have a pour of whiskey, maybe this Barrell Amburana, sip along as you watch the video. It's in 3 movements. It's a super, super cool piece by a composer that I'm friends with. It's just a really special piece to me. But we're not going to talk about that yet. We will get there. Let's check out this Barrell Amburana finish. And I do have some notes in front of me here on my phone. It's on the Barrell website. They talk about how these Amburana casks are really hard to work with. As I alluded to, they're very influential to the base whiskey that they are in contact with. They talk about the R&D process, which is very cool. Barrell goes above and beyond to figure out these things with proof, temperature, and just the conditions of finishing and reblending this stuff. Now, one thing I want to highlight is that the components of the blend come from Indiana and Kentucky. The Indiana components, 5, 6, 7, and 10 years old. Kentucky, 5 years old. And the mash bill, overall, the derived mash bill of this blend, 75% corn, 21 rye, 4 malted barley. If that sounds familiar to you, that is the lower rye bourbon mash bill from MGP. But there's also a little bit of this 21% rye Barton floating around in the market right now at 5 years old. So it makes sense. In my mind, if I had to take a guess on this, I would say this is that 5-year Barton, Kentucky, along with a blend of 4 different ages of that 21% rye MGP. But I don't know if that's for sure. 116.42 proof. It is cask strength. And that is going to do it. Let's check this thing out on the nose now and see what we get. Okay, so first impression right off the bat, yes, you get that cinnamon toast crunch note that you're used to hearing about if you've read anything about these Amburana finished bourbons. Everybody says cinnamon toast crunch, or they say it's like the milk after you've eaten a bowl of cinnamon toast crunch. I grew up as a kid eating cinnamon toast crunch. That was my cereal, my go-to. Yes, it does smell like that, but it's not completely blowing out the base whiskey. And I appreciate that, and thank you to those of you who suggested this, because this is not just like smelling a candle, which is what most Amburana finished bourbons are for me. So yes, you do get like this chai latte pumpkin spice. I mean, these are the kind of notes that this Amburana finish is imparting. But what's crazy is that you can smell beneath it. You can get into that base bourbon. You smell like the standard bourbon caramel, the standard bourbon cinnamon. There's actually a little bit of a citrus note here, interestingly, like almost like a lemon note. And I'm surprised to find that sticking out of the texture throughout that, Amburana finish. I got to pronounce it, properly here. Amburana. It's really cutting through that finish, which is surprising that this kind of lemon note would do that. Overall, I think that, on the nose, before I take a sip of this, really what sticks out is the finish. There is kind of this creamy vanilla note as well, but it doesn't feel like it's naturally from the base whiskey, from those casks. It does feel like it's coming from those finishing casks. Or, yeah, I guess they did use casks in this. I don't think they used spirals. They used legitimate Amburana casks, which is definitely different in the market these days. Anyways, let's get this thing on the palate now. Cheers. Hey, this is crazy. Wow. Okay. So yes, a little candle up front, right? A little like Yankee Candle, home sweet home kind of thing up front. But I cannot believe the cherry pie note on this whiskey. It's like, it's so clearly cherry pie to me that it's a little scary. It feels like almost flavored, not in a bad way, just in the way that I cannot believe I'm so distinctly tasting this note. So yes, chai latte, pumpkin spice, huge cinnamon, huge clove, which is characteristic of Amburana. But as that develops, as that hits the front of the palate, all those crazy spices in the finish, cinnamon toast crunch, then you get cherry pie so clearly. I mean, it's not the world's most sophisticated whiskey, I would say, but it's a mood pour, and I can't believe that the base whiskey actually comes through with this finish. So kudos to anybody that suggested this Barrell Amburana, because not only on the nose, but also on the palate, you're spot on. The marriage of finishing cask to base whiskey is something that is, in my mind, it's kind of a standalone in the market for these Amburana finishes, and there's no one better to make this happen than Barrell. I don't always love their releases. They've sent me a lot of their products. I think they're a little young. You can nerd out about them as they do. If you've read their tasting notes on their website, it's, it's intense, the tasting notes they give. But be that as it may, when they nail something, they nail it. And this is it. If you want Amburana finish, one sip from me, and I can tell you this is the best Amburana finish I have tasted. And I've had all the standards, Rio, RD1, all the stuff that's coming out. This is it. I'm telling you. Anyways, let's do a second sip now. Here we go. Cheers. Every sip, more and more base bourbon, less and less Amburana. Now, that's not the whiskey doing that. That's my palate acclimating to the finish and being able to move past that in order to get to that whiskey. But most of the time, that is not the case with these Amburana finished products. So, look, it's not complex in the way that I'm getting base whiskey profile and I'm able to dig into that so much, but it is complex in the way that they've managed to marry these two things in a very meaningful way. So I think it's a solid product. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm a little speechless because I just can't believe that this is so perfectly done. I think there are people out there that would say, oh, I want 10% more Amburana, and there would be people like me who are a little about that kind of finish and say maybe 5% less. At the end of the day, nothing else strikes the balance that this one does. So with that said, we're going to move on to the performance part of the video now. And the reason I asked about which whiskey you guys thought was a perfect marriage of finish to base whiskey is because the piece you're about to hear by composer Dave Maric, who's a friend of mine, he's written me a piece other than this one. This piece is percussion and electronics, and you'll hear what that means as I start playing the piece. It was recorded in my basement studio. The instruments that you see surrounding me those instruments are the same instruments that you hear in the track, in the electronics that are playing along with me. So it is quite literally a perfect marriage of things. It's me playing the instruments live and those instruments also being manipulated by Dave to play along with me. And so you'll hear me playing the marimba, which is the big wooden kind of xylophone looking instrument, but you'll also hear it in the background track at the same time. And so it is what Dave calls kind of like a super instrument, because he's combined two of the exact same things and he's able to double things and create new textures and new kind of musical lines in this piece. There are a lot of like electronic dance music influences, drum and bass, trance, these kinds of things. There's a little bit of like steel drum in the second movement. It's great. The piece is called Trilogy. The first movement is wild, called Concentrics. Second movement is called, what is the second movement called? Good Lord, Pelagy. And the third movement is called Tamboo. It's a fun piece. Sip some Barrell Amburana along with it. Let me know what you think in the comment section of this video, not only about the whiskey, but about the performance itself. And again, I cannot state it emphatically enough. I highly, highly recommend to you Amburana skeptics out there, this Barrell Amburana finish. I cannot believe I'm saying that. This is the one and only, the singular Amburana finished product that you need on your shelf. That's going to do it. Here we go. Check out Trilogy by Dave Maric. Cheers, guys, and thanks for checking out Pourformance #2. And thank you, Tim Tam Slam, for the name Pourformance. Cheers, guys.